Welcome to another edition of HorseCenter, everyone. I am Brian Zipsy, and as always, I have the terrific pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Schiffman. How are you today, Matt?
I'm great, Brian. I'm sitting here in HorseCenter, ready to do a show. 100-point Derby prep races are at hand. These horses have one more shot to make it into the big race.
But let's talk about the 50-pointer from last weekend, Matt. 50 points to the winner, that is. And the horse that earned it, Magnum Moon, a son of Malibu Moon out of an unbridled song mare trained by Todd Pletcher, the ubiquitous Todd Pletcher. Looks like he has another good one. Matt, Magnum Moon was impressive in Saturday's Rebel Stakes.
He certainly was, Brian. He came into the race with that Todd Pletcher MO. 2 for 2, nice wins, stepping up to the grade 1, and boy, he really looked impressive in that race, Brian. Made his move around the turn and just drew away, and a really nice performance, considering I was a little concerned in the pre-race because he was awfully sweaty and washed out going into the gate. Of course, I didn't know whether he's usually like that. I didn't recall from his earlier races that was the case, but sure didn't seem to make a difference in the Rebel.
Yeah, it worked for Highland Real, Matt. It seems like we see more and more horses. Shackelford's another one that comes to mind. Horses that we used to think it was a real negative too, and I guess it is on average still, but. Horses seem to just do that naturally, and then they run their race. Anyway, Magnum Moon certainly ran his race. And, you know, Matt, I like his progression. He had that really nice, impressive sprint. We all knew about him when he was unveiled at Gulfstream Park in January. Yes, he is an Apollo's curse horse, but a fast sprint. And then they did something interesting. Rather than going right into a stakes race, they went to Tampa Bay. Now, it was a decent field, but it was an allowance race at Tampa Bay, 1 mile and 40 yards. And it looked like Pletcher, jockey Louis Saez, got the horse a real education there, as he was never asked for early speed and really never asked much at all. And he just kind of coasted. And when they let him down the lane, he rolled down the lane at Tampa Bay. And again, over some decent horses. Made him my top pick for the Rebel, but this was even better than I really expected. Leggy horse, Matt, looks like a real athlete and looks like a horse who the distance shouldn't be a problem. He did drift out a bit, but looks like he's still learning rather than a horse who's getting short at the end of these races. I was very impressed with Magnum Moon, so much so that he is zooming up into high places in my top 10. We're going to talk about that in a minute, Matt. What about second place finisher, the even money favorite Solomini? What did you think of that performance?
You can give the standard lines. He hadn't raced in a while. He hadn't raced since December, so it was certainly a respectable race off the layoff. On the other side of it, I certainly wasn't wowed by the performance. Still hearing things about him not changing leads well, and that he's a bit of a headstrong horse in the mornings, and it seems like that carries over a little bit to the afternoon. So they are opting to go to the Wood Memorial from here. Maybe a little bit of an easier path, maybe to for his last prep race. But those kind of features, that headstrongness, the inability to change leads, are not things that I like to hear about a 3-year-old heading into the 20-horse field of the Kentucky Derby.
Yes, well, I'll say this, Matt. For his first race in a while and his first race as a 3-year-old, I thought it was a good performance. It was a solid performance. I like the fact that he was obviously game down the stretch. It looked like Combatant was going to go right by, and Solomini kind of fought back and won second place in this Rebel, albeit over 3 lengths behind Magnum Moon, but a good performance. And I think when he goes to the Wood, he'll have a chance to kind of put things together. This is a horse who's never run a bad race, son of Curlin. And in the Wood, we know Enticed, it looks like he's going there. So those might be the 2 favorites at this point in the Wood Memorial in April. And of the two, I prefer Solomini still, and I think he can move forward. Obviously, they want to keep him separated from the other big Bafferts in the barn, probably at this point the bigger Bafferts of Justify and McKinsey. But I think the Wood makes a lot of sense, and I expect Solomini to run a better race in the Wood.
Yeah, certainly, Brian. And they're also going to the Wood. I don't think they're dodging any competition. You got to keep in mind that the Zayats live in New Jersey, so it's moving their horse from the West a little closer to home. It's a good spot for him to make his next start.
Third place finisher, Matt Combatant. Looks like he has enough points for the Kentucky Derby out of the Asmussen barn. He's reminded me more and more, and I think I said this early in the year, he's reminded me more of Untrapped, who was a 3-year-old last year that ran a lot of good races. Didn't do a lot in the Derby. I think he won the Oklahoma Derby late in the year, but just a nice horse, an honest horse. 10 furlongs for the Derby, I have my doubts. Title Ready ran well on the lead, probably an improving sort. And Sporting Chance was just okay in fifth.
Yeah, that if you have to pick out a horse that was a little bit of a disappointment, it was Sporting Chance in there. He was in really nice position, and coming down the stretch, he just didn't have the kind of punch that the top three had in there. After the race, D. Wayne Lucas himself was a little puzzled and disappointed because he thought he had that horse at 100% and expected a really big effort in the Rebel.
Well, he'll need to bounce back, Matt, and it looks like, and especially knowing D. Wayne, he'll get every chance in the world to bounce back. Looks like he'll come back in the Arkansas Derby. Let's get back to the big winner of this race, Magnum Moon, 3 for 3. Looks like he's headed to the Arkansas Derby. And if all unfolds as we expect it right now, as the trainers are telling us, we're going to have a real showdown at Oaklawn Park for that Arkansas Derby with a horse who's 2 for 2 and another horse who's 3 for 3. I don't think Magnum Moon will be the favorite that day, but I really look forward to kind of an Apollo's Curse showdown in the Arkansas Derby, Justify and Magnum Moon.
Yeah, it will be a great matchup. Of course, Justify is the one that needs the points without any Derby points yet. So he's going to need a first or second place performance in there, which is expected. Magnum Moon's got 50. So he's already in there. It's just an indicator of the times are a change in that we got two horses that didn't start as 2-year-olds, two amazingly talented horses in Magnum Moon and Justify heading for a matchup in the Arkansas Derby. The heck with Apollo's Curse at this point.
The heck with Apollo's Curse, and I think you're dead on, Matt. Times are changing, but on the other hand, no horse has won the Kentucky Derby in 130 years that didn't race as a 2-year-old, so let's not bury Apollo's Curse just yet until someone does it. This could be the year, though.
It sure could. Hey, a 16 seed beat a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament this year, Brian. No one had ever done that.
Matt, as I alluded to, Magnum Moon was so impressive that he is moving quickly up my top 10 list. Folks are always asking us who we like, who we have as Derby horses. Got a couple emails in the last 24 hours about how I compare them. So, Matt, let's give our top 10s out now. Who's your number one?
I've got Bolt Doro up there, Brian. I've got him in number one, but, as these races are coming and performances are coming in, I don't have him way far ahead of the rest of them.
He's still my number one, and I'm looking forward to a showdown in the Santa Anita Derby. Another show. We're talking about showdowns, Matt. I like these showdowns. And he's my number one, too. He's been my number one for 6 months or more. So no changes for me. I'm sticking with Bolt Doro, and I liked what I saw in his return race. Now, number two for me, Magnum Moon, zooms all the way up, undefeated. I think he has an advantage over Justify going to the Derby in that he's got a little bit more foundation. He's already got 2-turn races. He's already got a graded stakes where it beat a good field. He came back even a month, starting his career a month earlier, I think helps over Justify because I think that experience is still a part of the Kentucky Derby. Magnum Moon is my number two. Then I drop down to McKinsey at number 3. Where do you have these two?
I'm going McKinsey at number 2, just on his experience and what I've seen so far. But the next 2, 3, 4 horses on the list are all horses that I really like a lot. So I've got McKinsey at 2, and then I have Justify at 3. I agree with you on what you said about Magnum Moon. I like him a lot. He's got that grade 1 experience already. Looks like a horse that'll really do well in the Derby, but I just can't shake the talent that I've seen from Justify thus far. So that's why I have him in number 3. And hey, that Arkansas Derby is going to be special.
Now, earlier in the year, you had Good Magic number 1. It seems like I'm holding on to him a little bit more than you are now. Good Magic is my number 4. I'm waiting for Justify. I'm waiting for Justify to race against good horses in a stakes race. So he's going to be a little lower on my list than obviously your list, and I think a lot of people's list. I have Good Magic at 4. I remember how well he shipped out to Del Mar and won last fall, and I'm willing to give him another chance after a disappointing third-place finish in his 3-year-old debut. And I think we have to talk about Audible, Matt. It's been a little while since we saw what Audible did in the Holy Bull, but that was an impressive win for the New York bred. So I'm going with some East Coast horses now. Good Magic at 4 and Audible at 5.
Yeah, we can't forget about Audible. And I think it's easy to, as these new races come along and nice performances come along. But let's remind our fans about Audible and how impressive he was in the Holy Bull. Because of that, I have Audible at number 4. I expect big things from him in the Florida Derby. I have Magnum Moon at number 5. And like I said, Brian, he could just as well have been at number 2 or 3 or 4 in there. And I have Good Magic at number 6. I guess recency a little bit for me there, but I didn't love his comeback performance.
No, it wasn't one performance to be loved, Matt, but certainly I think he's worth another try, another go before the Derby, and hopefully Chad Brown can have him back at his very best. My number 6 finally is Justify. Yeah, I'm with everybody else. How could you not like what you saw in the maiden win in February and then the allowance win just more recently? So I want to see him against good horses. I want to see him against stakes horses. And to tell you the truth, Scout Daddy's been one of the best sires in America the last several years. He's passed on now, unfortunately, but he's been one of the best sires. But truth be told, I do like Scott Daddy's going a little short generally. Now, if you have a horse this good, it probably doesn't matter. They used to say that about Bold Ruler as a sire, and then look what Secretariat did. So we'll see. But so far, I think Scott Daddy's a sire who's had horses better at shorter distances than a mile and a quarter than not. So all I'm saying is Justify still has a little to prove. Arkansas Derby, last we thought it might be the Santa Anita Derby for Justify, so it's nice that he's probably going to face a bigger field in the Arkansas Derby as well as Magnum Moon. We're both excited about that, Matt. And then Solomini, I want to give another chance too, so I kept him pretty high. He's at number 7 on my list, and I see you have him there as well.
Yep, I've got him at number 7 also. So our top 7, we've got the same 7 horses in there, and I think we've got a couple of horses the same in the bottom of our list. I have Bravazzo, the Risen Star winner, in at number 8, who's coming back in the Louisiana Derby. And I have Promises Fulfilled in the 9 spot.
Yeah, Promises Fulfilled, a nice winner of the last prep, the Fountain Youth at Gulfstream Park. Dale Romans, the son of Shackelford. I think he's a nice horse, so I have him at 8. And I have Bravazzo at 9. So we just flip-flop those two. Bravazzo ran a strong Risen Star last time for D. Wayne Lucas. And then finally, Matt, I'm going to round up my top 10. See if Catholic Boy can't. Another horse you previously were higher on than me, but I want to see if he can't bounce back from a decent effort in the Sam F. Davis where he was second. So he rounds out my top 10. I think he might be a 10-furlong horse. We'll need to see him bounce back a little bit, and he'll get his shot in Florida as well.
Yeah, I hope he bounces back also. I'm just a little concerned that this is getting to be too long of a layoff again between his last race and the Florida Derby, and the Florida Derby is going to be one tough field in there. I have in number 10 Quip, the Tampa Bay Derby winner. Can't fault that performance in there, and I think it's possible. I'm hearing that maybe Quip is also going to go to the Wood Memorial.
Right. If Quip is added to the Wood Memorial list, Quip and Tice Solomini, interesting race for sure. All right, folks, that's our latest Kentucky Derby top 10s. Now, Magnum Moon was a big performance Saturday, but there were a few other performances that really caught my eye also on Saturday. Let's go out to the West Coast because I think we need to start talking about Fault. Now, Fault was a turf filly. She was a graded stakes winning turf filly, although she didn't win a ton of races on turf. She was a consistent enough stakes performer on the grass. All of a sudden, and we've seen this before over the years, I'm going way back to Vigers doing it years ago, but all of a sudden she gets out to California. She's in Phil D'Amato's barn now, and this Daughter of Blame wins a very nice turf stake first time, but then what she does in the Santa Margarita on Saturday, Matt, that was a wow performance.
It was a wow performance for Fault, the Daughter of Blame, getting on the dirt out there. Hey, she got a really nice setup in there, pretty brisk fractions in there to set up her move, and she came around the turn and she just put away that field and drew off and looks like an older filly who's going to make some noise.
She will make some noise, Matt. She will make some noise. I don't know if it's the barn change. I don't know if it's getting out to California. I do know that she had 11 consecutive races on the grass, and now we get a dirt start out of her, a daughter of a Breeders' Cup Classic winner, a good-looking daughter of a Breeders' Cup Classic winner. And I'll tell you this, Matt, besides the domination she showed in rolling away from those horses in the Santa Margarita, it wasn't a great grade one, by the way. Unique Fellow was scratched, so on. But it was a big field, and I'll tell you, she went wide. Did you see her run into the first turn? She really lost a bunch of ground. She was wide on the second turn. Big performance. Fault is one of the best older mares in the country off these last two performances alone, but it's really exciting now that she's switched from turf to dirt. Maybe another one to get excited about was also at Oaklawn Park, and that's the 4-year-old colt from the Todd Pletcher barn. Talking about hedge fund, Matt, and the Essex wasn't a big race by any means, but it had a decent enough field. But I've seen so many of these lightly raced Pletchers really turn it on at 4, and hedge fund might be another one to do it.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't a graded stakes race, but it was a really good field, a really good solid field of competitive older horses in there. When I was handicapping that race, I found it hard to narrow it down to less than 4 horses or so in there, because there were a lot of good horses in there. And hey, Pletcher had a big day on Saturday all over the country, and Hedge Road was just one of them. Yeah,
Hedge Fund just barely. Derby last year is a very lightly raced horse, so he only had 5 starts combined at 2 and 3, and now his 2 races this year at Gulfstream Park and Allowance, and then the Essex, he won both pretty easily and he won both impressively. So Hedge Fund, watch out for him as we move forward in the handicap division, Matt, and it's a handicap division that is a little light right now as far as number of really good horses.
Yeah, it is. We've had some horses that aren't ready. We just heard that Sharp Azteca has some problems and won't be going over to Dubai, so his debut is going to be delayed. So it's good to see some new talent out there showing up, like Hedge Fund.
Matt, we finally break into it. You've talked about it a little bit already. 100 points are on the line for the winner. And what these races mean all of a sudden is you win it, you're in for sure. You're second, you're in it for sure. So these are big races. We're going to start out this weekend, Saturday, down in NOLA, down at Fairgrounds for the Louisiana Derby. Matt, the top 3 from the Risen Star. The Risen Star was a pretty exciting race. Instilled Regard finished fourth as the favorite, but the top three that beat him are all back here for a pretty wide open edition of the Louisiana Derby.
Yeah, it's kind of what tends to happen on this Louisiana Derby trail. They keep coming back there, but as we remember from the Risen Star, we mentioned it earlier, Bravazzo won the Risen Star, and he had to battle in there. It was not easy. He had to battle Snapper Sinclair, who was very impressive running on the front end, and I think surprised a lot of us the way he was able to hang on in such a determined way down the stretch. I think we expected Bravazzo as the race developed. It looked like he was going to go right by, but Snapper Sinclair fought every step of the way in there. Bravazzo's already in the Derby with his 54 points. Snapper Sinclair has got 22. Interesting thing about Snapper Sinclair is that they are making a rider change. They are going to get Jose Ortiz up there. And hey, Brian, there aren't many jockeys that are better on the front end getting the best out of a horse than Jose Ortiz. So I like that rider switch there by Asmussen.
Yeah, Jose Ortiz certainly has been getting it done the last couple of years, and I am still not on the Snapper Sinclair bandwagon, even though I saw him win a turf stake at Kentucky Downs last year. But you know, he gave everything but the kitchen sink through Bravazzo in the Risen Star, and it was a great race. Snapper Sinclair obviously is not to be taken lightly. Interesting jockey switch, as you mentioned, Matt. I think Bravazzo might be one that gets better, moves forward, and I think the third place horse, Noble Indy, who probably will get bet a lot as a Todd Pletcher trainee, also could move forward. Noble Indy, lightly raced Pletcher. He was third, and it wasn't a bad third at all in that race. Bravazzo and Snapper Sinclair were 1-2 all the way around. Bravazzo finally getting ahead of Snapper Sinclair late. I think Bravazzo might be getting good for Lucas. Lucas tends to do that with horses where they just start getting better. Awesome Again, he's a son of Awesome Again, which makes me think that he still has room to improve and maybe go even longer. So Bravazzo, I think, beats Snapper Sinclair again in here, Matt. Noble Indy, watch out for him from Pletcher. And then we got to talk a little bit about My Boy Jack, because DeSormo's had some success with these horses that seem to come out of nowhere. I guess My Boy Jack was mainly a turf horse last year, but in the Southwest Stakes, that was a pretty impressive performance, albeit in the mud, but that rally. And with horses like Bravazzo and Snapper Sinclair and even Noble Indy, probably all on or near the lead, My Boy Jack can throw a big one in again. Watch out for him, huh?
Yeah, I agree with that, Brian. The son of Creative Cause got a really nice trip up along the rail and just took off on the sloppy track in the Southwest at Oak Lawn Park. So there are question marks in there, but you know, I like what you said there, Brian. That the top three from the Risen Star are going to be up towards the front, and My Boy Jack will be closing. We'll see about the dry track and such. And My Boy Jack is going to be a good price in there.
Maybe. I'm not sure how high he'll be. I'm not sure about all four of these. My guess is Snapper Sinclair is the fourth choice of the four. I think these are the clear four favorites, as the rest of the field doesn't have a lot as far as credentials yet. Having said that, we've seen plenty of upsets on this 2018 Kentucky Derby Trail. So, you know, there are horses in here that could pop up, but these four certainly stand above the field on credentials. I don't have a real strong opinion, folks. I usually have stronger opinions, but in this one, I'm not so sure. I guess if I had to pick one horse, it would be Bravazzo. I don't think he'll be the favorite in here, but he could. That favoritism might end up on Noble Indy. I think maybe he'll get bet. My Boy Jack will get bet more than Matt seems to think. So I'm not sure who's going to get favoritism in here, but Bravazzo proved to me he was tough in that last one. So I'm going to give him a slight edge in Saturday's Louisiana Derby.
Yeah, I agree. It's a tough one to pick a winner at. You know me, I usually like to go for the Pletcher horses, but I'm going to give the nod to My Boy Jack.
There you go. The race could set up for my boy Jack. He's got some questions though, because turf and then mud, Oaklawn Park, and now he's going to fairgrounds. We'll see. But if he can throw a similar type of performance in, I think he very well may roll by the field in the stretch. That's Saturday. That's the Louisiana Derby, Matt. And speaking of Derby, we lost a champion just yesterday, Monday. We found out Thunder Gulch had passed. Thunder Gulch, now I remember his sire Gulch very well, and I remember Thunder Gulch very well. Winner of the Remsen. He traveled to Florida. He traveled to California a few times. Won a ton of graded stakes. He won the Remsen at 2, but then at 3 he really came to hand. He didn't run a good bluegrass, but then he won the Derby at really nice odds. I saw him in person in the Belmont and the Travers. Thunder Gulch, I saw him recently at Coolmore America here. Thunder Gulch was a good one, and sorry to see him go.
Yep, a great career, a good career at stud, lived to be well into his 20s. So we could give a big thank you to Thunder Gulch for his impact on thoroughbred racing.
Absolutely. Rest in peace, Thunder Gulch. Hey, Matt, that's another HorseCenter. Folks, I hope you enjoyed today's show. Again, we urge you to subscribe to our YouTube channel here at Horse Racing Nation. I want to thank our sponsor, Derby Wars, the best contest site out there. Any party shots today from you, sir?
Hey, stick with us on HorseCenter. We got these last 3 weeks are the big ones with the Louisiana Derby, and then we've got the Florida Derby, the UAE Derby, these 100-point races. That's where the Derby winners have been coming from the last 5-6 years.
That's right, and we'll do it all right here on HorseCenter. We'll be talking Kentucky Derby, Matt, all the way through the first Saturday in May. We can't wait. We'll see you next week right here on HorseCenter.